Victoria Park was filled with candlelights last night as citizens gathered to commemorate the June 4th massacre. A Perth man impersonated a police officer. The story of a real-life Catch Me If You Can. Thanks for tuning in.
In other news this week, the opposition demanded urgent reforms in WA housing. And DHK News exclusive on Australia's first live social networking TV show.
This is the Evening News.
Good evening. After 23 years of democracy struggle in Beijing, the truth of the Tiananmen Massacre is still buried in China. Yesterday, approximately 180,000 Hong Kongers gathered at Victoria Park for a candlelight vigil, commemorating those activists who are jailed or killed for speaking out. Hong Kong correspondent William Mann has more.
The candlelight vigil began at 8:20 last night, with Victoria Park filled with participants together demanding the Chinese government to release jailed human rights activists, ending the single-party rule and develop a democratic China. Members from Hong Kong Alliance in support of patriotic democratic movements in China and a number of youths present flower rings to remember those who died in massacre. Videos from activists ran down and Tiananmen mothers were played during the vigil, prompting participants to pass on the history to the next generation. Although University student Representative Lee Seng-hong was interrupted during his speech on the stage, the event was generally smooth. Chairman of the organizer Lee Chia-yan believed that participants from China have boosted the number of attendants in this year's candlelight vigil.
I think the record turnout of 180,000 people is because there are many mainlanders coming to Hong Kong. Now Hong Kong is not only the Victoria Park for Hong Kong, but also a Victoria Park for China and for freedom and democracy. So when in China they cannot commemorate June 4th, they can come over to Hong Kong to commemorate June 4th. And there will be more interaction, I'm sure, in the future between Hong Kong people and our Chinese compatriot, mainland compatriot. Together we will fight for a more democratic future.
The organizers said there were more than 118,000 citizens joined the event, while the police said there were approximately 85,000 citizens attend during the vigil's peak. William Mann, DHK News, Hong Kong.
China human rights activist Fong Tsing has also attended the June 4th candlelight vigil. Mr. Fong lost both his legs after being crushed by tanks during the Tiananmen Square massacre. He said Hong Kong's free speech rights are very precious, and he was moved by those students who participated in the June 4th hunger strike.
我没有想到23年后的今天，在香港有这么一群年轻人，他们做出了这样的一个举动。他们所做的这一切，只是为了让23年前天安门的这种精神不曾忘却，不曾被大家遗忘，更多的也是为了表达他们自己的一种愿望，去支持中国的民主化的进程。
Back to Perth now. This morning, the Environment Minister Bill Marmion has unveiled the Innovative Education Centre at Kings Park. The facility and the outdoor learning classrooms, along with 20 new education programs, allowing children, biologists and conservationists to learn more about WA's flora. Rio Tinto, the Water Corporation, the Friends of Kings Park, Lottery West and the federal government are partners of the project.
Well, we think the wider community will be benefiting from it, but certainly at least 15,000 school children will come through dedicated education programs every year, and that's in addition to the hundreds of thousands that'll come through the community side of Rio Tinto Naturescape Kings Park to have an environmental learning and discovery centre.
The ABC has exposed a security breach at the East Perth Watch House after an 18-year-old man obtained a police uniform and impersonated a police officer, working on several occasions before being discovered.
The Shadow Police Minister has urged the Corruption and Crime Commission to investigate this matter and prevent it from happening again.
This indicates huge gaping holes in the security at the Perth Watch House. If an 18-year-old can do this, you can only imagine what organised crime or perhaps someone with a connection to terrorist organisations or the like could do. This matter can't be brushed under the carpet. It can't just be left internally to the police. It has to have an outside independent investigation. This is the kind of matter that the Crime and Corruption Commission most definitely should be investigating.
WA opposition leader Mark McGowan has unveiled the economic reform on streamlining the planning and housing approval processing in WA. He also said the state is facing a housing crisis, blaming this on the Barnett government for changing the Building Act last year. The councils and the housing industry are confused with the law changes. State political reporter Shibs has this story.
Opposition leader Mark McGowan has come out to say that the housing crisis in WA is in need of urgent reforms after new figures show an alarming 46.7% drop in building approvals in Western Australia. Western Australia's population grew by almost 2.5% between 2010 and June 2011, and the underlying demand and supply of housing in the state stood at 28,000 in June 2010. The changes to the Building Act by the Barnett government were intended to address these issues, but Mr. McGowan says the disastrous drop in building approvals is evidence that the changes were catastrophic for the state's home building industry. He explains that the housing industry and councils are confused by the Barnett government's changes and legislative reforms are needed urgently.
If you read the debates back in 2010-2011, you'll see that councils across Western Australia, the state opposition, the building industry itself said these laws are confusing, they are contradictory, they will cause a hold-up in building approvals, and all of those groups were right.
However, Housing Minister Troy Buswell reasons that the drop in figures is a one-off impact, as across Australia, people are unwilling to invest in an uncertain climate.
People are still reluctant to invest. There is a lot of uncertainty in the market, and I think that uncertainty is fuelled in particular by what you see every night in Europe and overseas in terms of potential financial calamity when you turn the TV on.
Under WA's Labour's proposal, the approval process for the building industry would be streamlined in the following ways. After 2 weeks, if a building licence application was not dealt with by the council, it would be deemed approved. If a property obtains a building approval and complies with the R codes, then it would not be required by law planning approval inside the relevant local government. Planning and building approvals at a local government level would occur simultaneously where a property is non-compliant with the R codes. Shibs, DHK News.
WA Transport Minister Troy Buswell and WA Senator Louis Pratt announced the widening of the southbound Kwinana Freeway between Leach and Roe Highway has been completed. Both federal and state government each contributed $29 million to the project. The northbound expansion is to be completed by the end of this year.
The Kwinana Freeway southbound lane expansion project is completed, announced Transport Minister Troy Buswell along Federal Transport and Infrastructure Minister Anthony Albanese. A new southbound lane between Leach and Roe Highway is now part of one of the busiest sections in Perth Freeway South. $58 million is the total funding allocated to this project, from the Commonwealth and the state government contributing with $29 million each. The project expects to deliver better road infrastructure as well as improved driving conditions for Western Australians.
It's great we've been able to open the southbound lanes on the day of the very first West Australia Day long weekend. So great opportunity to provide better services for locals, but also for those people who are using this road to travel south.
Senator Louis Pratt says more than 100,000 drivers will be benefit by the additional lane as it will ease traffic congestion along the freeway.
This lane's been funded as a joint project between the state and the Commonwealth governments, with $29 million coming in from the Commonwealth government.
But Shadow Transport Minister Ken Travis says the project will cope to manage congestion but won't relieve people stuck in traffic. He mentioned the expansion of our public transport infrastructure as a more efficient and long-term solution.
What we know is that when you build roads, they very quickly fill up, that the long-term solution is better public transport. We certainly need to be improving our roads to manage the freight task in the metropolitan area, but in terms of that daily commute during peak periods, it will be public transport is the future, and we need to be smart about how we do that, and that's something that I don't think the current government is doing.
The Kwinana Freeway's northbound lane expansion is expected to be completed by the end of this year. Alexandra Mollo, DHK News.
Chile capital's mass transit, Trans-Santiago, is at the centre of controversy after announcing their bus fares will increase for the second time in a year. San Diego commuters complained that the service quality have not increased despite the recent surge of ticket prices. Chile correspondent Brian Ramir Pérez has more.
Trans-Santiago bus prices will be raised for the second time this year. A panel of experts in charge of adjusting the price of Santiago's public transport system decided to raise both bus and metro price by 10 pesos. The increase means that it will cost now 590 pesos and the metro will cost 670 pesos in the rush hour. However, those traveling with the student card will not suffer from increased price. A single fare will still cost 190 pesos. For DHK News, Brian Ramirez, Santiago, Chile.
And finally tonight, West TV launched Australia's first live social networking television show called The Buzz. This locally produced TV show is increasingly popular as it encourages audiences to interact with the program through social networking sites.
The good thing about The Buzz is it allows people can be involved. They pretty much sort of set the rundown for the show. They choose what sort of topics the presenters sort of talk about.
I believe The Buzz is very, very innovative because it's the first television show, first live interactive social media television show in Australia ever been made. Some of the interactive social media shows made on internet, online, but this is the first one which combines the internet, the benefit of the internet, social media and television free to air.
The show is on WTV every Thursday, 7:30 p.m. Speaking about social media, remember to join us on our Facebook page, and if you don't, you'll miss out on the latest news. That's how the world looks tonight.
Good night, everyone. See you next week.